All right, here at Larajay Farm, catching up with Greg Sugars. Hello, Greg.
Hi, Paul.
I thought I'd catch up with you, I suppose, a little bit after your Swedish trip, if you like. You were in the news for a couple of months afterwards. Firstly, I want to say congratulations on, one, the way the horse went, Just Believe, but also the way you guys conducted yourselves from the Elitloppet right through, and your social media usage. I think it was awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. It was certainly, I suppose, a bit of a unique experience for us, and really uncharted waters we were sort of venturing into. And yeah, there was some highs and lows, I suppose, along the way. But at the end of the day, you look back on the trip now, wasn't that long ago, but so many great memories, and yeah, certainly an experience I don't think we'll ever forget.
I want to delve in a little bit and find out a bit more about the trip and how it's potentially changed you. The build-up to it, I was in a bit of a unique position because I actually came here to do an interview with you, but you'd actually flown out the night before, such my homework and doing everything. But I was interviewing Jess, and at the time Jess didn't say anything other than the fact that you took better clips than 888 across to New Zealand. There was no mention about Just Believe other than that he wasn't going on the trip. You had to keep it a bit of a secret for, I think, about a week. Would that be right? You weren't allowed to really tell anyone to make common knowledge of the fact that you were going?
Yeah, no, it was a fair bit longer than that when we'd first sort of had it hinted to us that it was a possibility. I was up in Sydney at the time. I think we were up there. I can't remember what might have been with Better Eclipse. I'm not sure. And yeah, we had a phone call then that's saying that there's an idea that this could eventuate, and we're just sort of sounding us out whether we may be interested in doing that if it did eventuate. So that was some time beforehand, and yeah, so we sort of had to keep it to ourselves for a bit, and obviously let the owners know, and they had to think about it for a bit whether they wanted to take the adventure, and yeah, it all just went from there. So it didn't hear anything for probably a couple of weeks, and a few more phone calls along the way, and until the decision was made that an invite was going to get issued, and we were happy to accept.
That part of it was, you keep it a secret, but at the same time you also were taking two horses across to $1 million race, first $1 million race in the Southern Hemisphere, with the Grins. You're taking them across there. There was a race there. There was a nice race at the end of the Rainbow, the Row Cup over there as well for him. So you had about 5-6 weeks planned in New Zealand, and then all of a sudden someone throws this little curveball and says, "Oh, do you want to go to Sweden? And if you do want to go to Sweden, you're probably going to have to cut your trip in New Zealand a wee bit short because you're going to have to jump on a plane almost as soon as you get back."
Yeah.
There's so much going on behind the scenes.
That's right. Yeah, like the New Zealand trip was a first for us too. So that was already a big build-up and an exciting thing for us. And yeah, he was booked on, ready to go. Harry was going to take the 3 across, and there's quite a few trot races there, and stay on for the Row Cup at the end of the trip, and that was all sort of pretty well more than penciled in. That was happening, and then yeah, this came along, and we thought, oh, okay, how are we going to do this? And yeah, it all eventuated really well. The two boys that we raced in New Zealand did a great job, and we had a great time there, and we looked after fantastically well at Stonewall Stud, and everyone in New Zealand, that was a fantastic experience. And I think, oh, this is pretty good. And yeah, we got them home, and I think I was only home. It mightn't have even been a week, it might have been 5 or 6 days, and then we packed up and jet set it off to Sweden.
Did you ever sort of say, "What am I doing"?
Yeah, it was a bit surreal, really. Like, I never thought that I'd be taking horses internationally in harness racing, and yeah, to do 2 international trips basically back to back, like it's not something that I sort of thought was going to be a possibility for us here. Certainly when we started this, probably 6 years ago, I suppose now.
I want to stay on Harry and Just Believe and not sort of get too sidetracked, but you do have horses like Better Eclipse going around tomorrow night. This will probably come out after the Victoria Cup. The hunger for the stable, I suppose, just flying backwards and forwards to New Zealand, is it there now because of the fact that you were able to do it successfully? Obviously didn't taste the ultimate success, but successfully be able to manage a trip like that. Does that sort of whet the appetite for you?
Yeah, it does in a way. We've been lucky enough really over the last probably, I suppose it's 3 years now, to have some pretty high quality horses come through the stable that we've done a lot of interstate trips for the major carnivals around Australia, and really enjoyed that because it's not only exciting to be a part of good racing and potentially race for some great money, and and all those sorts of things. But the challenge of travelling a horse, fitting into a different environment, you sort of have to think on your feet a lot as to what you're doing. Keep an eye on the horse to see how it's handling everything and adjust your work and feed routine accordingly. There's just so much that goes into it, and we've had a bit of practice at doing that in a relatively short period of time, and that is exciting. It's a challenge. It's something, I think probably everyone sort of strives to be able to do those sorts of things. And, so then to take it to the next level and go internationally was quite amazing, really. And, obviously we all strive to sort of better ourselves and improve what we do as trainers and drivers and improve the quality of horses that come through your stable, so you can go on those journeys.
I think it's awesome. I think it's exciting about what might be in the future, and we might get to that at the end of it. Who knows? I sometimes forget what I'm going to say from time to time and go from there. It's an interesting thing to travel, because you've got Mark and Nathan Purdon starting here at the minute. The Kiwis come over here all the time, but we don't go over there. It's quite a funny. It is quite a funny one. The trip. I did an interview with Lockie Ford from IRT. Must have been so, I suppose, comforting for you, if you like, even though I know, talking to Lockie, it was a lot of unknown for them, charting your trip, but just the work they do behind the scenes in everything, knowing what food you can take, knowing where you can get food, and making sure that you weren't going to rock up at a port somewhere and think, oh my, I've got to stand here and hold Harry for half an hour knowing no one's going to be here. Yeah,
exactly right. There was a lot of sort of unknown questions that we sort of had, and we really had a vague idea of what to expect, but not really anything was sort of certain in a way. But can't speak highly enough of the team at IRT. They were outstanding. I don't know how many phone calls backwards and forwards Jess would have had with them organising the trip. Like, I was lucky in a way that I had to do the trip, but Jess did all the organising, which was probably in some or many ways probably more of a headache. And they were fantastic, IRT. They looked after us incredibly well, and the process, now you look back on it, it was, it went perfectly pretty much. They made sure that we had all the relevant information, the most important stuff, and bent over backwards to make sure they could accommodate our needs and everything we needed. And it was such a pleasant experience.
We did one of these at Stonewall, and you were probably a little bit worried about how much idle time you were going to have. When you watch it on social media, and it wasn't sort of like you had a lot of idle time. I know you had hours probably sitting on planes and trucks and things like that, but you seem to be pretty much doing stuff all the time.
Yeah, on the travel. You mean the trip over? Yeah, it was. Obviously, I think it was roughly around 36 hours of flying time the time we landed, and then so we got in to Amsterdam, and by the time we cleared the quarantine process there and made it out to a horse hotel, he was stabled overnight. So we didn't get there until probably, it might have been a bit after midnight, whatever day that was. And got a few hours sleep, and Harry was in the stable and had a bit of a feed, and then we loaded up at about 6:30, 7 o'clock the next morning, and then we're on the road for 18 hours, and we went straight through, and which was a hell of a drive, really. So, like either trip, either part, like the flight or the road trip, they're big enough just on their own, but to do them pretty much back to back was hard work, but I was incredibly surprised at how well Harry handled it. I think a lot of those trips are probably harder on humans than what they are the horses, and it just, like, obviously we love him here, and I had such a high opinion of the horse, not only just as a racehorse, his race deeds, but he's a real character of a horse. But that trip just it took him to a new level in my eyes, just to everything he went through, and I knew how I was feeling, and to see how well he appeared to handle everything and adjust to all the different surroundings, and from crate to crate and plane to plane and then truck, and all that sort of stuff. And every time I'd stop to check on him, whether it was on the plane or whether we stopped on the road, and give him a drink and give him something to eat, and he just accepted it and just took it as if he's done it 1,000 times before. It was just quite amazing to see how well he handled it.
You proud of him as a horse?
Oh, incredibly proud of him. Yeah. Like I said, he just went to a new level, and being with him, for the amount of time I was, just one-on-one with him in Sweden, I'm not, embarrassed to say that the last day I was there, when it was, had to say goodbye to him, basically, it was incredibly tough.
Yeah.
I got quite emotional and rang Jess and I sent her a picture and I said, this is incredibly hard. And, he we were such good buddies before we went there, but he really became a close mate, just spending so much time with him. It was unbelievable, the sort of connection I built with him in that, relatively short period of time.
You're known as a world-class driver and now world-class trainer, you and Jess. Definitely now you cemented that spot. But you go over there and a lot gets said about the races, and probably enough's been said about the whole races and the experience. But as a world-class driver, I imagine you absorb so much. When you got there, even before the Elitlopp, did you find yourself just watching how they all do things, and did you change any of your prep, I suppose, watching what everyone else was doing?
Not really. We sort of made a conscious decision, both Jess and I, before we went, that we were pretty confident we were going to see things that were vastly different to what we're used to, and that was exactly the case. But we sort of went into it thinking we know what works for us, and we've just got to be true to ourselves and stick to that, and hopefully that's good enough at the end of the day. But yeah, you're right, for the first sort of week or so I was there before the Elitlopp, we might have arrived about 10 days before, I think. I was obviously asking plenty of questions, getting around to as many people as I could, went to quite a few race meetings beforehand and just saw the way everyone operated and how they did things, and it was a real eye-opener. I did have moments where you sort of a bit of a roller coaster ride of emotions in a way that you're thinking, oh yeah, we can do this, we'll be right. And then other days or other moments, things would happen. I thought, geez, we're out of our depth here. I think this is a mistake. So we sort of went backwards and forwards a little bit as to how we were going to go. But I suppose in a way, we were a little bit, we were very unknown, obviously, to the Swedish community. And while there was, a fair bit of media interest and a bit of speculation as to who we were and whether we were going to measure up or just be some, second-rate performer from down under. People were a little bit sheepish with some of the interactions we had, but even after the disaster that was the Elitlopp, people could see that, we had a horse here that was world-class, basically, and, they just accepted us with open arms, and from that point on, they were outstanding, and I learned a lot from so many different people. It's
interesting you call it a disaster. It was a race. I mean, they happen. There'll be another one in a minute, and all the rest. I mean, I could just imagine. I couldn't imagine actually. But you say about your mate, but at the time, yourself and Jess were there, and you could see. I don't have to ask about the emotions. You've spoken enough about those at the time, but you could just see what it meant to you guys going over then.
That's one thing I will touch on. That I'm so glad that Jess was there with me, because I really don't know how I would have handled that. I can't ever remember feeling that low after a race in my life. Everyone's had bad moments, of course, and things like that. But the way that race unfolded in the finals, 300 or 400 metres or whatever it was just it was gut-wrenching, and like I said, I can't remember being that low before. But in the end, looking back on it now, and Jess and I have spoke on it since, that when little things have gone wrong since, compare it to that, and it'll be a long time before, or hopefully a long time before anything gets anything close to that. And we realised we got through that together. We bounced back and moved forward. So if we can get through that, there's not too many things that can hold us back.
How do you get through that? Here in Australia, you go to Geelong tonight, you've probably got half a dozen drives. You drive the second race, drive a shocker. You get in the next race and you win it. It's easy. You drive day to day. Over here, 6 days a week. Nine times out of 10, you'll be driving 6 days a week. How do you, when you're over there and you've only got one horse and he's your bait, and you're not even sure at the time, you were only going for the Elitlopp, the rest was up in the air as to what you were doing.
Yep.
How did you steel yourself for your next drive, and how do you try to block all that out?
Yeah, it was tough. That's one thing, I've been very resilient in that sort of aspect here, as you say, like especially big occasions. I've been lucky enough over the years to have quite a number of drives, and quite often something will go wrong at some stage of the night, but you've got 10 minutes to get yourself ready, jump on the next one, away you go, and you just put it behind you and move on. So it was a very different set of circumstances, obviously, that I had. As it turned out, we stayed on for other races, so I had 2 weeks to sort of get focused again, and I'd have to say it took me a good week to sort of start putting it out of my memory, and the main thing was, the horse come through it fine, and just getting back in the routine, working him, and realised that he's fine, he didn't care, he probably helped me. No, he was like, what are you worried about? Just press on. And just getting back in, the next week and working him in business as usual, just got me back on track, I suppose. And it was exciting. Looking forward to the next race, and the build up to that was sensational. People were really excited to see what we could do, because they were excited to see, what we would have done in the Elitloppet if it had gone slightly different. So, but it did probably take me a good week to sort of stop really kicking myself in the guts over it, and focused on the next one, and away we went.
You do a bit of running, and I know as a runner myself, I suppose you punish yourself when you go for did you go for a couple of hard runs?
No, I actually didn't. I didn't do any running while I was over there.
You've done a stack in New Zealand.
I did. So I was basically recovering from that trip, I think.
It is raining a bit, but anyway, it's only a sun shower. It'll pass very, very quickly. Hang on one sec. I'll sit it there. It'll be fine. I never edit stuff, so I'll probably just leave that in there. The whole trip over there, though, you represented Australia, you represented yourself, your stable, and everyone so well. Did it, when you were there, like you say about leaving him behind, but did you want to, was it like almost, can I stay here a bit longer and continue this challenge?
Yeah, it was in a way. I mean, obviously we have so many heavy commitments back here, and there was obviously the financial burden of, not being here earning money that sort of pulled me back in a hurry. But the way we were going at the end of it, after those last 2 runs and the support I was getting from everyone, and there was so many good races coming up that he could have ran in. They really wanted us to stay. Even Daniel Redan, the leading trainer over there, that has the great Francisco Zet that beat us in that last race. Even after that defeat, he said, "Surely you're staying. Like, you can't go home." Like, he wanted me to stay, which was just amazing, really. And so like I was getting quite settled in that environment, and like I said, me and Harry were getting along like a house on fire. We were going great guns, and it would have been quite easy for me to stay there a bit longer, but at the end of the day, we knew it was a trip. It wasn't a lifestyle change, and we had to get back to the real world.
Before we get off there, what was the oddest thing that you actually saw over there that you thought, man, if someone tried to do that in Australia, and I'll keep talking so you got a bit of think time, but if someone tried to do that in Australia, you'd either be laughed at or it just wouldn't work. Was there something that stuck out when you said you were watching different things?
Just the way they train is very different to what we do here. Like, general rule of thumb is pretty much no one jogs racehorses anymore over there, and they just train them 2 days a week. So straight away, just the whole routine was pretty standard across nearly every farm I went to. Mondays and Thursdays were their big training days. It obviously can vary a little bit during racing schedules as to where they're racing, and there's some sort of little individual changes, as we know, for each individual horse. But the general rule of thumb is they only train them 2 days a week. And straight away I was just like, how can that work? How can these horses be as fit and strong and fast and tough as what they are, and compete the way they do just on 2 days a week? And that was something that was nearly the first question to every new trainer I met or everywhere I went. I said, so do you only work 2 days a week? And they, yep, Mondays and Thursdays. Like, that was quite amazing to me. Did
they look at you strange when you were jogging him?
Yeah, and they all kept asking me, why do you jog? What are you jogging for? Oh, well, that's what we do. That's our routine. That's how we do it. And it was one of them things that I kind of didn't really have a good enough answer for them. as to why we do it. That's just the way we do it, and it works for us. So I wasn't going to change it. Even a couple of trainers, when I went travelled for those different tracks and stayed at different places, and we worked in with their horses a couple of times, and we did a bit of training, and they're like, well, surely you're not going to jog him again tomorrow. That was enough, wasn't it? I'm like, no, I'll still do what I do, So that was very different.
Be interesting if some of them have changed maybe after they said the way it goes. Maybe
some of them did think they were going to try and tinker with a few horses. And the other thing is the amount they warm up their horses beforehand and how hard they do it. There was, I think, the first race meeting I went to, a horse come back in the barn, lather of sweat blowing, and I went, oh, how did you go? Thinking it just raced. And he goes, oh, no, that was just the warm up. And I was just amazed. Like it was heaving, and they think nothing of it. That's just normal.
Did that horse go any good? Do you know?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. I didn't win, but it ran a very good race, So, and that's just normal. It happens, Most horses do that. Yeah.
So my segue. This is good because it's a segue. Because as I said, I could talk about Harry in his racing, but pretty much everyone's spoken about that. I remember Chris Alford when he went to the World Driving Championships in Sydney. And he came back and he changed his driving pattern after seeing Timmy Tetrick, Jody Jamieson, those guys picking horses up, carrying them differently. And Chris actually plateaued a little bit, I reckon, for a while, and then took it to a whole another level once he mastered how to do it here in Australia. One, we'll stay with the training for a start, but have you found yourself changing because of this European trip, your own training back here?
A few things. We've taken a few little ideas, but as I said, we still try to stick to what we know and what we know works here on our farm and our style of racing. But there has been a few ideas we have sort of implemented that we've seen positive results, over the last couple of months. From that point of view, I think there's still ideas we've got that we want to try in the future with other horses. As far as the driving side of things go, I don't think there was probably a great deal of difference. I think it's one thing, when you watch a race, and we watch several races over there, that you can pick, the good drivers out straight away. They do stand out, and I think that's pretty common, no matter where in the world you're watching. But they're very kind to their horses over there, which they have to be as a general rule. Well, not as a general rule. It is the rule throughout Sweden. They're very, very conscious of their animal welfare over there, and everything that they do is all about protecting the animal and the longevity of the horse, and all that sort of stuff. Like their peak racing years are basically 8, 9, and 10, which is they're our twilight years here. They're very the horses train right from a young age, but they don't race anywhere near as much as what we do. As early as what we do, basically. So they're all focused on longevity.
I've noticed, and the real Sherlock is one of those horses I want to highlight the other night, but I have noticed how much kinder, and not that you were unkind on horses anyway, since you've come back. Is that something that you've noticeably done, or is it just because you were over there and saw it differently, and you may or may not be aware of how kind you are to the line? But I mean, the real Sherlock wasn't even in front last Saturday night, but you knew you had the race won, and you basically dropped the shoulders and just let him roll to the line. Have you purposely noticed that? No, nothing. Maybe subconsciously there may be a bit of an influence there, but I think I've always sort of had that mentality a little bit. I've never been a overly vigorous driver unless I really had to. I think a lot of horses, the vast majority of horses, they do give you everything they've got, and basically extra half a dozen slaps on the backside is not going to change their finishing position in the majority of cases. So I try to be as kind to them when I can, and hopefully they repay the favour the day that you do get a bit extra with them, that hopefully they do find that little bit more. I think it's great, and I think a lot of drivers should watch and monitor what they do. Right, Harry, just believe he's about to start on this next prep one. How's he tracking? Really good, yeah. He'll be off to the trials on Monday at Melton for his first real serious hit out, but he's done a lot of miles here at home, and pleased to report he's come up probably better and probably slightly quicker than what Jess and I had first sort of
thought may be the case. We thought, even though he handled everything so well while we were there, we just thought it's got to take its toll at some stage. But I have to say, when he came out of quarantine here, IRT obviously did an outstanding job, and all the people involved throughout Europe looking after him in the changeover time that we weren't there looking after him. He come back looking a treat, and come into work, I think, some 45 kilos heavier than when he won the Inter-Dominion early in the year. So we had a little bit to work with straight away. So, we didn't have to sort of waste any time sort of going a bit easier and building him up, because he was already in great order. So, yeah, he's well and truly on target to defend his crown this year.
Okay, so what's his crowns? The Inter-Dominion?
The Inter-Dominion, that's our number one aim. I mean, that was probably the biggest question from the ownership group when we first floated the Swedish idea. That it's not going to impact that, and we didn't know for sure and certain. Obviously, there's always unknowns with horse racing in any aspect of it, but we're pretty confident if nothing went seriously wrong or anything like that, we'd have enough time to give him a break and get him ready, and that seems to be the case.
It's pretty cool, the longevity of the horse, isn't it? He ran third in a brutal Inter-Dominion. When I say brutal, it was a long trip at Menangle, but they had the race at, from memory, Bathurst. I'm going to get them wrong. Bathurst, Newcastle. I'm trying to think where the other track was. There was one other track that they had the race at.
Yep.
You guys didn't have him at the time, anyone wondering, but Mickey Hughes had him. And it was the travel. Like Bathurst is like a 3-hour drive up over the hills, and being part of an Inter-Dominion. Quite often horses don't come back. He comes back, he defends his title, then he flies around the world, and they're aiming at getting him back. His longevity is just amazing. Yeah,
exactly. No, he's such a resilient horse, and even though we didn't have him through that campaign, that gave us so much confidence going into the Inter-Dominion in Melbourne, that we thought, well, he could do that, travelling for a different environment, being on the road, going to all those different tracks, and performed as well as he did on the final night, then doing it in his own backyard, where there's still a little bit of travelling, but at least he's in his settled home environment. We thought, yeah, he'll handle this, no worries, and that proved to be the case. And going through those experiences, we probably did have that in our back of our mind, that we had the right type of horse to do the big trip that we did going to Europe, because he's such a cool customer and takes everything in his stride, and he's just so resilient.
Queensland's going to be a walk in the park. Albion Park, 2-hour flight. Like he's going to think, where's the rest of the trip? He's going to do it. Great Southern Star. Is that on the radar for him?
Yep. All going well. We'll basically plot. Obviously, we've missed the races like the Bill Collins Sprint on this weekend. We're not ready for that. And probably no major targets before the Inter-Dominion, but post Inter-Dominion we'll be going down the same path that we went last year.
And then
this year.
I've seen some talk that potentially going back to have another crack at the Elitloppet. Yep. That is still on the radar at the minute. Like if he stays sound and everything.
Obviously, he's got to be going every bit as good as what he was last year, and maybe even a touch better. But most of the ownership group have already suggested that, if the option is there to go again, that they'd certainly entertain the idea and be quite keen to get back there, because kind of got unfinished business in a way. Obviously we were so proud of what the horse did, but it would have been great to come home with a photo on the wall of a win, even if it's not the Elitloppet. Just any race over there would be outstanding. So it's certainly an option, but a lot of water to go under the bridge yet.
Do you change your tack? Do you go earlier? Do you go the same time? Do you keep things the same? You got plans in place or thinking about it already?
Not really. I think it's sort of too early to sort of get too serious about that. But there's just knowing what to expect now. I think there's a few little things we could do a little bit differently, but because nothing went wrong with the horse and he travelled so well, that the timing actually probably wasn't an issue. But I would have liked, in hindsight, to have at least had a drive or two prior to the Elitloppet, and whether that meant giving him a run or so, that probably would have helped us a lot more under those circumstances. But given the fact that if we did go back next year, that at least people know who we are and they know what to expect from the horse and from us, and that'll make driving there a lot easier, I think.
Would you be a chance of getting a drive for some of these trainers who now know you?
I would like to think so. I'd hope so. I've still stay in contact with a few of them.
Maybe not necessarily running him around. You might be able to get 1 or 2 drivers.
Exactly. And I think that would be a great experience and something that I'd highly recommend to, if it's not us this next year that goes, if someone else does go from down here, that if you can try and get some sort of experience before you go into it, I think it's invaluable.
There's a trot slot race that's on in New Zealand, same time as the Grins, which will be a bit hard for him to go if he does happen to go for that. Do you love the way the trotters are evolving in Australia? Especially right here in Victoria. Right at the minute, we've had a bit of a downturn, I suppose, in stake money and all the rest. But most of the other states and across the ditch, really picking it up. Like, and the trotters have been what's been embraced.
Yeah, absolutely. The way the breed's evolved and changed over the last 10 years at least, and particularly the last probably half a dozen years, just shows that we're able to compete on a world stage now. We've got not just the odd one horse every decade that maybe one out the box. We've got a number of quality horses every year, and the young ones are getting faster and stronger every year, and it's exciting for our sport that we're heading on that upward trajectory. And I mean, it wasn't that long ago, trotters were probably second class citizens in a lot of people's eyes in Australia, and bloody trotters didn't want them, and a lot of the leading stables just wouldn't even entertain the idea of having one. But there's not many stables that don't have a trotter in them now, and I think that's fantastic.
And I think it's the easiest way to promote our industry, because our paces have always been celebrated, but the trotters haven't. We want to grow our industry, start celebrating these horses. And as you said, he didn't win over there, but he did represented Australia so well, and represented Larajay Farm so well, and everyone that actually works for him. And I think that's the thing. And unfortunately for the pacers, they can go to North America. Harry could go to North America. We saw what Aldebaran Zeus has just done recently. So I think that's the other part about them. They are the world gate, and there's so many things that they can do, including show the personality. I don't have carrots.
Where's his carrot, mate?
I know how much he loves carrots. Mate, he's fed and powered by Barrastock too. Traces here behind the scenes as well, but that's actually awesome for one of my sponsors. But that wasn't the main part about it. I think well done to you guys for what you've done. Look forward to the next part of the trip, and how he goes going to New Zealand. But I think well done to you, Jess, everyone here at Larajay, because as you said, while you were away sunning yourself in sunny Sweden, they were back here working, and I saw some pictures. It was pretty wet and muddy while they were back.
Don't worry, they were quite happy to send those pictures through just to let me know that I had the better end of the stick there.
No, well done, mate. Thank you very much for joining me. I love talking about him. I think he's a great story, and I think as an industry we need to celebrate him, Aldebaran Zeus, and as I said, a few of these others. We've got a mare called Queen Elita that's just doing everything as well, so I think it's the best way to promote it. So, mate, thanks for the chat.
No worries, Polly.
Always appreciate talking to you.
Good on you, mate.